spoke about how
Yeah, Jay don't look
they'll
out.
look up a Bleak like they'll look out for you.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I just want to clear that up. Hope don't have to.
And then he said he eat his home halal.
Right. I'm chewing aloud on my own.
He eats on his own. I eat on my own too.
Right.
On my own too. I just came off tour.
Right.
When have you seen Bleak on tour? On his own. Jay-Z is not a bad guy. Bleak is not a bad guy. I'm not saying. I'm saying to you that Jay-Z was all business with them niggas. When Buck up on his taxes, 50 apiece and more. When Prodigy bought a house and needed more money, 50 apiece and more. Prodigy are paying back. The thing with 50 is, it was business and we was friends. I don't feel like Bleak was Jay-Z friend. I don't feel like Young Guns was Jay-Z friend. It came to a point where 50 was helping Siegel. Siegel was left in the dust. Let's keep it real. That's how I looked at it.
Ruthless world of hip-hop. Loyalty, legacy, and ego are a deadly mix. And right now, that storm has a new name. Tony Yayo versus Jim Jones. It all started when Jim Jones threw shade, calling Yayo a broke peon while comparing Jay-Z and 50 Cent's empires. But instead of staying silent, Yayo fired back with pure venom, flipping the narrative and asking the world one simple question: who's really broke? This isn't just about money, it's about respect, history, and street credibility. These two come from the golden era of rap beefs, when words could end careers and loyalty could build empires. Behind the scenes, whispers suggest 50 Cent himself isn't too happy with Jim's shots. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's name being dragged into the mix has turned what was a small jab into a full-on industry war. What did Tony Yayo really mean when he said, "I was there when real hustlers ran New York"? Why did Jim Jones feel the need to attack him publicly? And how did this personal feud explode into a Jay-Z versus 50 Cent comparison that's dividing fans across the internet? Grab your seat, because this isn't just rap drama. It's a clash of eras, egos, and empires. This is the untold story of how a single insult reignited one of hip-hop's coldest feuds. It started like most hip-hop feuds do these days, not in the studio, not in the streets, but online. A single clip from a podcast went viral overnight. Jim Jones, in his usual confident tone, casually compared Jay-Z and 50 Cent, implying that one built an empire while the other just built controversy. Jay-Z's a mogul, 50's a hustler. But look around, where's his team now? Tony Yayo broke. Banks. Quiet. It's not the same. That one sentence, Tony Yayo broke, was the spark that ignited the fire. To most fans, it was just another rapper talking slick. But to Tony Yayo, it was personal. This wasn't just about money. It was about loyalty, history, and respect. Yayo, the man who had stood by 50 Cent through bullets, bans, and betrayals, wasn't about to let his name get dragged through the mud by someone who once smiled in his face backstage. Tony Yayo had been quiet for a while. He wasn't chasing clout or trying to get into new beefs. He was focused on living his life, touring with Gannett, and staying out of drama. But the moment Jim Jones' words hit social media, fans started tagging him nonstop. Yayo, you gonna let him talk like that? At first, he ignored it. But then came the interviews, Jim Jones doubling down, talking about how he never saw Yayo do anything big and how J-Unit was just 50 and a bunch of tagalongs. That's when Yayo snapped. In an Instagram live that quickly went viral, he looked dead into the camera and said, "You call me broke? Bro, I have been rich since 2003. You were talking about breaking when your whole label fell apart. You're talking about loyalty when Dipset broke up every other year. Let's talk about facts, not cap." The internet exploded. Within hours, hashtags like hashtag YAYOV's Jim and hashtag whose single quotes really broke were trending. Fans began digging up old interviews, clips, and photos comparing the legacies of G-Unit and Dipset. The comments were divided. Some said Yoyo's loyal, that's real wealth. Others argued Jim Jones got hits, but he switched up too much. Few even dragged the heavyweights into it. 50 made millionaires. Jay-Z made billionaires. Who really won? Even other rappers started chiming in. Old school legends like Fat Joe and Styles P dropped subtle comments hinting that Yayo might have a point. Meanwhile, others sided with Jim. saying he's been consistent and still making music that charts. But what fans didn't realize was that this beef wasn't new. The tension between Dipset and G-Unit goes way back to the mid-2000s, when both groups were at the height of their power. Back in 2005, when 50 Cent was dominating the rap game with Get Rich or Die Trying, Jim Jones and Cameron were running New York with Dipset, rocking pink furs and diamond chains. Both camps had one thing in common: ego and pride. 50 and Cameron had a brief exchange on Hot 97 where things got heated. What most fans don't know is that Yayo and Jim almost crossed paths in that same era backstage at award shows. On the same block, even in the same clubs, but mutual respect and shared connections kept things from boiling over. Fast forward to today, and that old tension is bubbling back to the surface. The new generation might think this is just internet banter, but for those who remember the early 2000s, this is unfinished business. When Tony Yayo dropped his response, he didn't just clap back, he flipped the entire narrative. "You talking broke. Bro, I still make money off records from 20 years ago. I still tour the world. You had to go on reality TV to stay relevant. Who's really broke?" That line hit hard. It wasn't about who had the flashiest cars or biggest chains. It was about who built something that lasted. Jim Jones might have fame and fashion, but Yayo represents longevity and loyalty. To him, money isn't the real flex, survival is. And in that sense, Yo-Yo's not wrong. After all, he was there when 50 got shot 9 times. He saw the industry turn its back on them. Yet G-Unit still rose. They went from the streets to platinum plaques, and Yayo was part of every chapter. But the moment this feud got connected to Jay-Z and 50 Cent, everything changed. Jim Jones' comparison wasn't accidental. He was playing chess. By mentioning Jay-Z, he knew he'd stir something deeper: the long-standing rivalry between two of New York's biggest icons. Yo-Yo's response hinted at that tension. "You talk Jay-Z like he's the only one that made it. But 50 built his own empire. Movies, TV, liquor, energy drinks, the whole nine. And I was there from day one. We did it without help. Self-made." Was a direct message not just to Jim, but to everyone who doubted G-Unit's legacy. This isn't just a fight between two rappers. It's a symbolic clash between two eras of hip-hop. The Harlem fashion wave of Dipset, flashy, flamboyant, hustler energy, and the South Side grind of G-Unit, gritty, militant, loyal to the code. Both sides shaped New York's identity. Both stood for something real. But now, those old flags are being waved again, and fans are choosing sides. Social media debates turned into heated spaces. YouTubers started dropping breakdown videos. Even TikTok got flooded with "Who's really broke?" challenges, with users comparing their favorite lyrics and moments from both groups. As the smoke rises, fans can't help but wonder, will this lead to something bigger? Whispers inside the industry suggest that 50 Cent might be gearing up to address it himself. And if that happens, this small verbal jab could turn into a full-blown hip-hop war, the kind we haven't seen since the golden days of rap beef. Meanwhile, Yayo seems calm. His latest post, a photo of himself counting stacks, with the caption, "Still getting paid off loyalty." Jim Jones hasn't backed down either. His response? A slick story showing his jewelry, cars, and studio, with the caption, "We don't do broke energy over here." The stage is set. The world is watching. And the question remains, in a game built on image, loyalty, and survival, who's really broke? When Tony Yayo clapped back at Jim Jones, he probably didn't expect the conversation to shift so fast. From a small insult about being broke to a full-blown debate about two of the biggest moguls in hip-hop history, Jay-Z and 50 Cent. But that's exactly what happened. Because when Jim Jones tried to compare Jay-Z's empire to 50 Cent's, he didn't just throw shade. He opened up one of hip-hop's oldest and most complicated rivalries. Fans have been arguing this for years. Who really built the bigger legacy? Who truly changed the game? Jim Jones thought he had the answer. But Yo-Yo's comeback forced everyone to take a second look. Jay-Z got the billion-dollar status, Yowie said during a later interview, but 50 showed the blueprint for independence. Jay had the system. 50 built his own. And that statement hit deep because it's true. Jay-Z became a mogul by mastering the business world from the inside. He played chess within the system, signing with Def Jam, then running it. 50 Cent, on the other hand, broke the system. He turned mixtape hustle into mainstream power, flipped street credibility. As 50's fame exploded, so did his ambition. He didn't just want hits, he wanted control. He built Ju Unit like a corporation, signing Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, Tony Yayo, to even game. Each one was a piece of a larger empire. A statement that 50 wasn't just another rapper. He was a boss and Jay-Z. He was watching quietly, strategically. Over the years, the two men crossed paths, traded subtle shots, and represented two very different worlds. Jay played the polished corporate game, a Brooklyn businessman in a tailored suit. 50 stayed the street general, loud, fearless, and ready to call out anyone. Their feud was never open war, but it was cold competition, the kind where every move, every deal, every headline was a quiet chess move. So when Jim Jones invoked Jay-Z's name to downplay 50 Cent, and by extension, Tony Yayo, it didn't just disrespect G-Unit. It reopened an old wound between New York's two biggest titans. Tony Yayo, in one of his lives, made it clear, Jim, want to talk about Jay-Z like that's his man? But we all know who really built who. Hav never gave none of us nothin'. 50 gave people opportunities. He put food on people's plates. That's real power. Those words struck a chord with fans. Because when you think about it, for every rapper Jay-Z signed or mentored, there's another story of an artist who said he turned his back. Meanwhile, 50 Cent, for all his controversies, put his people on. Even years later, he still keeps Yayo and Banks involved in his ventures, shows and tours. It's loyalty versus legacy, street credit versus corporate success. And when you put that debate in front of hip-hop fans, it's like pouring gasoline on an open flame. Soon, clips of Jay-Z's old interviews resurfaced, moments where he subtly distanced himself from street rap, focusing more on billionaire ambitions. Meanwhile, 50's interviews resurfaced to where he proudly embraced his street roots, mocking anyone who forgot where they came from. The internet turned it into a digital battleground. Team Jay-Z said money and longevity are the ultimate proof of success. Team 50 said respect and authenticity are priceless. But in the middle of it all stood Tony Yayo, the loyal soldier whose clapback had started it all. He wasn't trying to reignite old rivalries. He was defending his name. Still, the impact was bigger than anyone expected. Music outlets started running headlines like Tony Yayo versus Jim Jones sparks Jay-Z versus 50 Cent debate. Is 50 Cent the true blueprint for street moguls? Yo-Yo's loyalty brings G-Unit back into the spotlight, and just like that, something shifted. What began as an insult became a conversation about hip-hop's values, about what really matters in this game. Is it fame? Is it money? Or is it the respect of your peers and the streets that raised you? Meanwhile, behind closed doors, word spread that 50 Cent wasn't amused. Insiders whispered that he saw Jim's comments as a sneaky way to disrespect him without saying his name directly. And when 50 feels disrespected, he never lets it slide. He started posting cryptic messages online, old photos of G-Unit, throwback clips of sold-out tours, and one caption that said, "Built it from nothing. No handouts. No cosigns." Fans instantly decoded it. He was talking about Jay-Z. He was talking about Jim Jones, and he was reminding everyone that his story and Yo-Yo's came from grit, not glamour. At the same time, Jim Jones doubled down again. In a radio interview, he laughed off Yo-Yo's comments and said, "Ain't nobody worried about G-Unit. We are doing boss things out here." But the tone of his voice told another story, a mix of pride and defensiveness. Because the truth is, even after all these years, G-Unit's shadow still looms large. You can measure success in dollars or awards, but but you can't measure impact. And that's where Tony Yayo and 50 Cent hold the upper hand. From the mixtape era to the social media age, their influence still echoes. Their blueprint, loyalty, fearlessness, and hustle became a generation's mindset. As this new chapter unfolds, the tension feels like a ticking time bomb. Will 50 Cent drop a response? Will Jay-Z subtly address it in his next verse? Or will it all explode into one of those moments that remind everyone why hip-hop beefs are modern-day wars of legacy? One thing's for sure, Tony Yayo didn't just defend himself. He reignited a fire that's forcing fans, rappers, and even moguls to look in the mirror and ask, what does success really mean in hip-hop? Because sometimes the richest man in the room isn't the one with the billions. It's the one who never switched up. And that, more than anything, might be why Tony Yayo's words hit so hard. When Tony Yayo fired back at Jim Jones, the hip-hop world thought it was just another verbal scuffle that would fade in a few days. But then 50 Cent entered the picture. And once 50 steps in, the game changes. It all started subtly. A few cryptic Instagram posts, a few sly captions, and a single emoji that said more than any diss track ever could. One post showed 50 sitting on a private jet laughing with stacks of cash beside him. The caption read, "Broke. Stop playing. My broke days made me rich." Fans went wild. They knew exactly who that was aimed at, Jim Jones, and by extension, everyone who doubted G-Unit's Grind .50 didn't need to name names. His silence, his smirk, and his history said it all. He'd been watching from the sidelines, letting Yayo defend the G-Unit name. But now it was personal. When you come for Yayo, you come for 50. And 50 doesn't do light responses, he does career-ending reminders. Suddenly, interviews, podcasts, and Twitter spaces were flooded with debate. Is 50 Cent about to drop another diss record? Will Jim Jones clap back? Is Junette about to make a comeback? The streets were buzzing. The blogs were eating it up. And the old school fans, they were nostalgic because it felt like the mid-2000s again. Then came the video that flipped everything upside down. Tony Yayo appeared on DJ Vlad's show, looking calm but confident. He didn't shout, he didn't curse, he just spoke the truth. Jim can say what he wants, but at the end of the day, I'm still standing. I'm still eating. Loyalty doesn't expire. I've been through more real situations than half these rappers. And if the 50s broke, why did he get his name on every show on TV right now? That line hit the internet like a thunderclap. Because it wasn't just Yayo defending himself, it was him defending legacy. Meanwhile, Jim Jones wasn't backing down. He went live on Instagram, surrounded by his crew, laughing and flexing jewelry. "Y'all talk about TV shows and old records," he said. "But this is real boss talk. I'm in the streets every day. We getting money, we move weight in fashion, real estate, music, not nostalgia." But something about the energy was off. Fans noticed that Jim seemed defensive, even frustrated. It wasn't the confident Jim Jones from the Dipset glory days, it was someone trying to prove he still mattered. And that's when the industry began to split. Some rappers, especially the younger ones, sided with Jim, arguing that modern success is about brand relevance and lifestyle. But the veterans, the ones who came up when the streets ruled the sound, leaned toward Yayo and 50's side. "Respect doesn't expire," Fat Joe tweeted. "You can't buy loyalty." Styles P reposted Yayo's clip, captioning it, "The real always lasts." Even Jadakiss, who once battled both camps, subtly weighed in. Money fades. Legacy doesn't. The message was clear. The old guard respected Yayo's loyalty. Behind the scenes, 50 Cent began making calls. Word spread that he was quietly putting together a G-Unit documentary, telling the real story behind the group's rise and fall and its loyalty. Some say it's being developed for his This Is 50 Studios. Others whisper it might hit Starz or Netflix, whatever the platform. Everyone knows what that means. When 50 tells his side, he doesn't hold back. And Jim Jones? He's been in this business long enough to know what comes next. A 50 Cent retaliation isn't just a few tweets, it's a campaign. It's memes, interviews, and moves that hit harder than music. The streets, however, started seeing the feud differently. For many fans who grew up during the Dipset and G-Unity eras, this wasn't about money anymore, it was about authenticity. People started comparing moments. Yayo staying loyal to 50 for over 20 years. Jim Jones falling out with Cameron multiple times. Junet. Jim talk money, Yayo talk loyalty. One fan wrote on X, "That's the real difference." Another added, "You can't clown a man who fed his family off loyalty. That's forever money." The internet turned the feud into a cultural referendum. What matters more in hip-hop, being rich or being real? And then came the curveball nobody expected. During one of his live shows, 50 Cent stopped mid-performance after the DJ played We Fly High. The crowd went wild. Thinking he was about to diss Jim Jones, 50 smiled, paused, and said, "That's a classic. But some of y'all forgot who the real hustlers are." He laughed, dropped the mic, and transitioned straight into Many Men. The crowd erupted. It wasn't a diss, it was a reminder. A power move. A signal that 50 doesn't need to argue on Instagram. His legacy speaks louder than any live rant. That clip went viral in minutes. Jim Jones fans tried to spin it as respect. But everyone knew what it really was: dominance without words. Behind all the headlines, Tony Yayo continued to stand firm. He wasn't apologizing, he wasn't backing down. He posted a simple quote on X that summed it all up. "I'm not rich like them, but I'm a realer than most. That's my wealth." That single post got shared thousands of times, not by celebrities, but by fans who felt it. Because Yayo's words represented something raw and rare in today's industry. Principle. As the smoke began to settle, one truth became clear. Tony Yayo had unintentionally started one of the biggest culture wars of the year. It wasn't about who had more cars, more cash, or more fame. It was about values. The industry thrives on drama. But this time, the drama revealed something deeper. The quiet difference between men who chase success and men who embody it. Jim Jones might still shine under bright lights, but Tony Yayo reminded everyone that real ones don't fade. They endure. And 50 Cent? He's watching from the throne, amused, patient, calculating his next move. Because in hip-hop, the loudest man in the room rarely wins. The most strategic one does. And the 50's been playing chess while everyone else argues over checkers. The question remains, will this feud die quietly? Or are we witnessing the rebirth of an old empire? Either way, one thing is certain: Tony Yayo's name will no longer be whispered. It's being spoken again, loud and clear, in the same breath as 50 Cent and Jay-Z. And this time, the world is finally asking the right question. Who's really broke? The man who lost his way. The one who never sold his soul. So now, the question's on you. In a game built on money, power, and betrayal, who do you think really won? Was it Jim Jones, chasing fame and flexing wealth? Or Tony Yayo standing tall on loyalty and respect? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this ain't just music anymore. It's hip-hop history repeating itself. And if you believe real hustlers never fall off, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because we've got more untold stories from the dark side of the rap game coming next. This is more than drama. This is legacy. Legacy.